everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Mads, and today I'm bringing you my 2023 wrap-up. I know it's like the second week of January of 2024. We're ignoring that. We are going to be discussing my 2023 reading year today. It is currently freezing out, so I have my hot chai. So today I'm just going to be kind of wrapping up my 2023 reading year and kind of doing a little bit of a recap. So this is gonna be a fun time. So at the beginning of the year, I set the goal to read 47 books. And I know 47 is kind of an odd goal. In 2022, I read 45 and I had just barely reached that. Like I was pushing at the end to reach it. So I thought 47 would be good because it would push me a little bit, but I felt like 50 would be too much. I ended up reading 65. I don't know what happened. I spent so much time reading. So I read 65 books out of 47, and I am just jaw on the floor amazed with myself because this is the year that I have read the most books in, if that makes sense. I've never read this many books in a year. I'm so proud of myself. Some other big reading related things that happened this year. I became a Penguin Teen influencer, meaning that they send me advanced readers copies for a honest review. Mainly they are e-arcs and I am very much behind on them, but they do almost every other month. They send me a physical copy of an arc, and this past year I have gotten Thin Air, Nightbreaker, and just recently Spin of Fates, I believe is what it's called. And I am just so happy that this is my reality now. It's kind of a little bit of a dream come true because I've always loved Penguin Teen. So thank you, Penguin Teen, for accepting me into your program. Another big thing, which I'm sure you know if you're watching this right now, I started a booktube channel. I've been wanting to start one for years, and I've always been too scared to do so. So I started a Bookstagram account, and then a book Twitter account, and then I restarted a Bookstagram account until finally I got the courage to finally start a booktube account. So here I am, just talking about books and thriving because it's honestly so much fun, even if editing is a pain. I hate editing, but it's fine. And then another big thing, I personally considered it a big thing. I started reading ebooks this year. Before this, I really didn't read ebooks. The only thing I read on my phone was fan fiction. And so this year I started reading ebooks. I think the first one I read was Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. And then I thought, hey, that actually wasn't that bad. And I kind of enjoyed it. I got through it pretty quick. So I now read an ebook maybe once a month. Typically not. Typically it's less than once a month. But I'm more open to reading ebooks, and so I kind of love that. So those are just a few of the big things that happened to me reading-wise this year. I can't really think of anything else. I'm sure there's a few things that I'm missing, but those are kind of the main things that come to mind that I'm just super happy and proud about. So without further ado, let's dive into all the little prompts that I came up for myself. It's actually kind of weird looking back on the year reading-wise because I look at the books that I read at the beginning of the year and it doesn't feel like I read them this year because it felt so long ago. And also I read them when I was still living in the dorms. I was in my spring semester of my freshman year. So it's like disorienting to look at them and be like, oh my gosh, I read that this year. That counts as this year. Throws me off a bit, but it's fine. So first off, I'm diving into my favorite reads of the year. I do have a top favorite. Throughout the year, I've been filling out a book bracket, and that has been so painful. It's been so hard to do it, but I did do it. And I came out with the book on top, and it was actually one of the latest books I read. It was my top book of December, and that is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I was not expecting myself to love it this much. I knew I was going to enjoy it, and I think I kind of mentioned this in my last video, wrapping up December, but I did not expect myself to love it as much as I did. But this book gave me all the feelings, and I just completely devoured it. And if you don't know, it's about this kind of magical apartment that our main character, Clementine, lives in. She inherited it from her aunt, and her aunt always told her that the apartment has the ability to send you 7 years into the past. And then she walks into her apartment, it's 7 years in the past, and a guy is there, and they kind of have just this like amazing weekend and everything unfolds from there. I absolutely adore this book, and the main male character, Ewin, has my heart, and I want one because he's just so I just loved him. I loved him so much. This gave me just all the feelings. And I find it kind of funny because it's kind of about these characters who are in their 30s or so, and I'm not. But yeah, I can still relate to them in a lot of ways, and so I still find that kind of funny, but it was just really enjoyable. Please go read this. This was my favorite read of the year. And I do have some honorable mentions because there are some others that of course I absolutely adored, and I just need to talk about them when talking about my favorite read of the year. One of them is House in Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Guys, this book is so heartwarming. It's like a cozy fantasy. I've never read a cozy fantasy before, and then I read this book. And now I want to read all the cozy fantasies because it just gave me all the feelings, okay? It hits. It's about this social worker who is sent to investigate this magical orphanage because of certain reasons, and I think his company's wanting to shut it down, but he ends up just kind of like falling in love with these people, and he just ends up becoming a part of them, and it's so heartwarming, and I just loved it so much. I just loved it so much. And then of course, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I really enjoyed this book. I even have the Dragon Edges, which is now one of my prized possessions because they don't make them like this anymore. But I really did enjoy this book, and it kind of took the world by storm for a reason. I just really love the dragons, okay? I love dragons. There was an enemies to lovers romance that was fairly quick burn, which I don't typically go for quick burn, but in here it worked, and I really enjoyed it. This one is about our main girl, Violet, who has to join this dragon college that trains dragon riders, and she has a lot of health problems, and basically everybody's like, you're gonna die, but she does a really good job, and obviously a lot of other things kind of unfold politically, which is a really cool aspect. So I really enjoyed those. So those are my two honorable mentions because I can't not mention them. I really loved them. Now, kind of on the opposite end of that are my least favorite reads. Oh gosh, I'm gonna be attacked for this. Okay, so at the beginning of the year, I decided to finally finish the Shatter Me series. I can't remember which is which because there's so many and they kind of all have the same titles, so I can't really remember which is which, but they ended up becoming some of my least favorites of the year. I didn't like them. I didn't really like how the series ended. I feel like I have a lot of different opinions about it, and I kind of dived into it on my thoughts on popular books videos, or at least one of them. I just didn't really like the ending. It fell flat for me. I just started to get bored and was honestly just reading them just to get through them and just to say that I have it complete. These aren't the last couple ones. I don't have the last two, I think. I don't think I read Defy Me this year. I know I read Ignite Me. Pretty sure I read Restore Me, so ignore that one. I read these two and then whatever comes after them. But I didn't love them, especially after I really did enjoy Shatter Me. I'm sorry, and I'm really sorry to Elsa for not liking some of your all-time favorite books, but I truly did enjoy these. I don't hate you if you do enjoy them because obviously everybody has different taste, but these just weren't for me. This next one I feel so bad about because it's one that Penguin Teen had sent to me. I just had a lot of different issues with it, and that is Thin Air by Kellyanne Parker. It was good, okay? It was really enjoyable. First of all, look at the cover. The premise is the premise sounds amazing, but there's just a couple of problems that I had with it, including the main character kind of got on my nerves. There's this weird love triangle, and I feel like the love triangle really got in the way of this whole life and death situation. The mystery was really good. Some of the characters I didn't love. You know what? It happens. I don't even remember what I rated this. I think it was about 2 or 2.5 stars. Definitely falls on my least favorites. But honestly, if you want to check it out, I say go for it. Because it might just have been a me thing. Might have been something to do with the writing or the way that the characters were portrayed. That kind of just got on my nerves. And I will say, some of the phrasing I think got on my nerves. But it was still pretty cool. Really good premise. And I don't regret reading it. So that's something. Now, I don't have my other least favorite reads of the year, but I will say two of my other kind of least favorites are The Fine Print and Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. Again, it's not that I hated them, it's just that out of all these books, they were my least favorite. I didn't really connect with the main male character. I kind of thought they were harsh, aggressive, annoying, which obviously is not a popular opinion, but that's just kind of how I felt about it, and they were too grumpy on the grumpy sunshine trope. But they did introduce me to a whole new genre of adult contemporary. I got to see these other tropes that I've never read before, like Marriage of Convenience, and I do really want to read Lauren Asher's other books as well, but These two just weren't my favorite. I'm sorry, but I will talk about Final Offer later. Note that I did not include Final Offer in my least favorites. So those are kind of my least favorites of the year. Again, I didn't really hate any of them. I didn't hate my life reading them. I just was kind of fighting to get through them at some points, and just really didn't love them. And compared to all these other books that I read, they were just happened to be at the bottom. Next is my most surprising reads, and I honestly had quite a few surprises this year. I love it when I read a book and I'm like, probably not gonna like this, and then I end up loving it because it's so unexpected. And I know some people are like, if you feel like you're not gonna like it, why do you read it? For this exact reason. Most of the time I will read something because it's popular and I want to understand the hype. I just want to see what my opinions are about it so I can kind of talk about it, and sometimes I honestly end up loving them a lot more than I thought I would. Okay, so I think my most surprising read of the year has to go to Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, because I was not expecting myself to like it. I literally went into it thinking, this may end up being like a 1-star read. And I don't have many 1-star reads, so I went into it thinking I really wasn't gonna like it. I ended up rating it at 3.5 stars. So it wasn't like my favorite of the year, but I still really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it enough to want to read the other books in the series. Stassi and Nate were a lot cuter than I expected them to be, and they had a good banter to them. They, I think, were really good for each other in a lot of ways. I think Nate was really good for Stassi, and so I kind of love when couples are, like, good for each other, because I feel like sometimes you read books and it's like, you guys are toxic, and you're not gonna end well. But this one, they're endgame. And you can see that. Like, this is such a cute little love story. And, of course, I love the little college found family that we get with the hockey guys, and how Stassi and her best friend are just integrated into that, and how they're just really protective of her and, like, will literally get into fights for her. And it just makes me so happy. Like, I cannot tell you how happy some of those scenes made me. Because it was just, like, so cute. And it grabbed my heart. I will say some of the writing wasn't really for me. I think it just felt a little bit like cringy or cliche. And then some of the scenes in this book I felt like were a little bit unnecessary. But I didn't let that get in the way of me loving it, and I still really enjoyed this book. Another big surprise was one that I read kind of a while ago. I don't even remember which month it was in, but it was this year, and that is Daughter Dalloway by Emily France. Now, I don't think I've really talked about this book much on my channel. I read this for a book club that I was in at the beginning of the year. I wanted to try it out, and this was definitely a new read for me. It's an adult historical fiction. Not really my scene. It's not really a romance. It's more of a self-discovery kind of journey, which I still do really appreciate. And I think I ended up rating it 5 stars. Maybe because of how much it surprised me, but I really just did enjoy it. And I think I definitely enjoyed it differently than I did my other 5 stars, because it is so different. But I think for this type of book and for this genre, it was a 5-star read, and I don't regret saying that. So this book is kind of a continuation off of Virginia Woolf, Mrs. Dalloway. It follows her daughter as she kind of tries to figure out who she is and figures out where her mom went. And then it also follows this other girl who has this whole other story that I don't want to say too much about because I don't want to spoil it, but it basically follows these two girls as they kind of go through these very different kind of lives, and they're both trying to find somebody important to them, and you do see their paths cross at some point, but it's kind of in a little bit of an unexpected way, and I just really enjoyed it. If you ever want to try an adult historical fiction, I say try this one because I thought it was a really good one to kind of get started in. Some other really big surprises are, again, are books that I don't have either read them on ebook or got them from the library, but Final Offer, it did take me forever to get through it, because it is a little bit of a bigger one. But Final Offer was such a big surprise by me. That one is, again, by Lauren Asher. And I know I didn't love the first 2 books in the series, but this one took me by total surprise because I really did enjoy it. I rated it about 4 stars after reading the last 2, like 2 or 3. I loved Cal. Cal is a king. Okay, Luna's joining the video. Cal is just a king, and I think it was my first second chance romance, and I honestly kind of enjoyed it because they had this history, and so you kind of see them figuring out how to balance their history with like their current situation and learning how to be together like today. And it also has a single parent trope, which is another thing I haven't really read before, but I thought it was cute. I thought it was so cute, and I also loved the dynamics between the brothers that we got to see in this one, because you've already been introduced to the other 2 in their own books, and so we got to see them all together for once. It made me so happy to see them all together, and I just really enjoyed this book a lot more than I thought I would. And I think that is kind of what makes me want to read Lauren Asher's other books, because there's a chance I'm gonna like her other ones. And then one last really surprising read was Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. I read Throne of Glass a while ago and I didn't love it. And I didn't really love the second one, so I went into Heir of Fire expecting me to kind of just drag through it once again. But I don't know what was in that book. Maybe it was just the plot. It was definitely a different plot than the first two, but I really enjoyed it. It made me really excited to read the rest of the series because things are picking up and I'm starting to get more invested in the characters, and I actually am starting to like Selena. I didn't really like her in the first couple of books, but now something just clicked for me in this book, and I definitely am excited to read the rest of the series, which I'm also really happy about because it's a long series and it would suck if I didn't want to read it, and I decided to read it. It was definitely one of my top surprises. To contrast that, we have my most disappointing read, and I find this one kind of funny because it kind of contrasts a little bit with one of my favorite reads of the year, Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I know a lot of people have mixed reviews on this one. I've seen people rate it 5 stars. I've seen people rate it 1 star. I rated this one about 3, so very middle of the way. And no, it wasn't my least favorite of the year, but it was very disappointing because of how much I was looking forward to it and how much it just kind of let me down. It's a continuation off of Fourth Wing, and there's just a lot of problems I had with this book. I didn't love Xaden and Violet's relationship in this book, and a lot of their arguments felt very repetitive. I felt like he was holding her back a lot more in this book than he did the first one, which really made me mad. And then there's just a lot of scenes I feel like that were unnecessary and were just really slow to get through. But also there's some scenes that really did introduce the world to you a little bit more and helped you dive deeper into it. And the ending was insane, I will admit that. But there were just a lot of parts where I was trying very hard to get through it and it was kind of painful. It was just disappointing. After reading Fourth Wing and rating that one a very high 5 star, reading the second one and rating it very middle of the way was just very disappointing. Okay, so now I'm going to be kind of talking about things that you see in your story graph. Yearly wrap up, my most read genre ended up being YA. I don't know if that's really a genre. Like, I don't really consider YA a genre. I more consider it an age grouping, but they consider a genre. So it's on there as my top. But second to that, so my real most read genre in my eyes was fantasy. And I really do love fantasy. Then next up I had romance. Not surprising, I really love romance. And I feel like even a lot of my fantasy and science fiction books have romance in them. Because I am a hopeless romantic at heart and I will go feral for a good romance. Then I had LGBTQ for my third most read genre. Again, not surprising. I definitely read a lot more of those this year than I have in years past, and I definitely dived into it a bit more, and I really enjoyed it. And then I also read a lot of contemporaries. Not surprising. I really did dive into contemporaries a lot more this year, especially adult contemporaries with the Dreamland Billionaire series, Icebreaker, 7 Year Slip. Like, I dove quite a bit into adult contemporaries, so that one really wasn't surprising to see. My most read author is Rick Riordan, because this year I read The Kane Chronicles, the Magnus Chase series, and started my reread of Percy Jackson. So that alone is like 7 or 8 books of his that I've read this year alone. So it's not surprising that he came out on top, but after him, my second most read author was Maggie Stiefvater, who wrote the Raven Cycle, and that is a 4-book series. I enjoyed it. I definitely didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, which is kind of disappointing, but I did still find it enjoyable. Not my favorite of all time, not my least favorite either, and I totally get why other people are kind of obsessed with it. I'm just not one of them, and it sucks, but it happens. So yeah, she's on my top after reading a 4-book series. After her is Sarah J. Maas after reading 3 books. This is the first year I dove into her books, and I'm excited to continue them. Definitely not going to be my favorite author of all time, but I can see the appeal to her writing. Definitely not my favorite, but I can see it, and I'm definitely going to read more of her books. And then Taria Muffy, because I read the last 3 books in the Shatter Me series. Not my favorite author. I will admit that. I don't know if I'm going to read her other books or not. I'm kind of hesitant on it, and I feel like it'll take a lot of convincing to get me to do so. And then my last most read author is Lauren Asher. Once again, read 3 of her books, the Dreamland Billionaire series, and I'm definitely going to be reading more of her books because I want to. And then my average rating of the year was 4.11 stars. I feel like that's pretty good, and I feel like I'm more likely to rate a book 4-star than I am anything else. I think that's typically my highest bar on the bar graph. But I have also kind of been rethinking the way I rate things, and I feel like this next year is probably going to be a little bit lower, only because I'm kind of getting better at realizing what's a 4-star and what's a 3-star, because I feel like sometimes those lines get a little bit blurred. So that was my average rating for this year. I did have 15 5-stars, which is honestly pretty great. Now I'm going to dive into my 5-star books. I'm only going to kind of brush past them. I don't want it to be too long, but I just kind of wanted to share all the 5-star books that I read this year. So obviously some of my 5-star reads are Fourth Wing, House in Cerulean Sea, and The 7 Year Slip. I kind of already went over those because they were my top books of the year, so of course they're going to be my 5 stars. Some other books are So This Is Ever After by F.T. Lukens. At some points I didn't love this book, but by the end I was just so invested that I had to rate it a 5-star, and it really much reminded me of a D&D campaign, but kind of the aftermath of a D&D campaign, because that's kind of what it is. Like, the quest is done, now they have to deal with the fallout. So I thought the premise was really good, and it was so cute. And it is childhood best friends to lovers, which is not a trope I typically love, but I thought it was done really well, and I really loved this book. Also had Malibu Rising by Terry Jenkins Reid. I just love the sibling dynamics in this one, and it was so interesting. It's kind of a different 5-star read than something like House on the Cerulean Sea or The 7 Year Slip would be. More similar to Daughter Dalloway, which I also mentioned, but I still really enjoyed it, and it's definitely one of those books that kind of stuck with me. Of course, I also rated The First to Die at the End 5 stars. This one was a lot thicker than the first book. They were just so cute, okay? Like, Orion and Valentino really deserve the world, and it hurt me. This book is about the beginning of Death Cast, which you see in They Both Die at the End, and it's just heartbreaking, as the title entails. Yeah, I still read it and still wanted to cry my eyes out. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Sands. This book just hits so hard, and it's often shared or recommended as a queer romance, but really it's more of a self-discovery journey as a 15-year-old boy in the 80s, and definitely somebody who struggles with his family, struggles to make friends, and really struggles with himself. It's so amazing. Some lines hit so hard, and it's such a deep book, but it also is so straightforward and simple. It's great, and I love it. Also, The Naturals. I've talked about this quite a bit on my channel. It has a found family trope, and it's about these teenagers who are inducted into this program of the FBI to solve cold cases, and they're called the Naturals because they'll have these like natural abilities that are used in the FBI, like profiling or whatever, and it's just absolutely insane. Also, The Sunbury Trials by Aiden Thomas. I read Cemetery Boys last year in 2022 in the fall, probably in October, so I had to read this book, and oh my gosh, I loved it. I loved it. So it's about this trial where these semidioses have to compete to become the next sun bearer, and it's very much life or death. Like, the winner becomes a sun bearer, the loser literally dies. Like, the person who comes in last place dies. And so our main character is the son of a lesser diosa, kind of the second tier, and those people don't typically survive. They're typically the ones used as a sacrifice. But he gets thrown into it, and it's insane. So many crazy things happen. I love his best friend. His love interest is T, and it's just amazing. And it does have a transgender main character. I think all of Aiden Thomas's main characters are transgender. And I loved getting to see this like Mexican mythology and culture coming through in a book, because before this and Cemetery Boys, I never really saw that. And it just made me really happy. It's like a queer Mexican Percy Jackson. Obviously, everybody should go read it. Another one of my 5 stars was pretty recent, and that is Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. It was just, I loved the characters in this one. And the plot, yeah, kind of confusing. Sometimes I had no idea what was happening, especially when it came to the game that these immortals play. But the characters carried it so much for me, and I loved them, and they were just, I want more of them. I need more of them. It's kind of complicated to explain quickly. This vampire is trying to sell a house that this ghost is in, so she reaches out to a medium who happens to be the godson of death, and then things kind of fall apart, and the godson of death kind of gets dragged into this thing that involves the game that the immortals play, and drags in all these other characters along with him, including an angel, a reaper, the vampire, a ghost, a demon, and a demigod. And they're basically playing to become the Masters of Death. It's so insane, and I really, 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 really loved it. I read it, and I was like, no doubt in my mind, it was a 5 star. And then, of course, the rest of the Good Girls Guide to Murder series by Holly Jackson. I read A Good Girls Guide to Murder at the end of 2022, so this one carried on into this year. This book is probably one of the most insane books I've ever read in my entire life. It was such an easy 5-star series. I had to rate it 5 stars because of how much of a physical reaction it got out of me. Like, a 4-star book can't do that. It has to be a 5-star book that actually has me, like, screaming and crying and on the edge of my seat, terrified for the main character. This book is absolutely insane, and I just adored it, and I still can't get over some of the things that happened in this book. Some other books that I rated 5 stars this year was the Magnus Chase series, because I just really enjoyed them. And yeah, again, they're kind of a different kind of 5-star than some of these other ones, such as Good as Dead, but I just found them so enjoyable, and I just really wanted to keep reading. I was laughing, and so I definitely had to rate those ones 4 stars. Magnus Chase, honestly, his sass level matched the level of Percy's sass, and I think that also plays into me loving it so much because it kind of did bring me back to reading Percy Jackson for the first time when I didn't know what was going to happen. You're getting this whole new mythology explained to you, and it was just really interesting and enjoyable and fun. So those were definitely 5-star. And then this next one doesn't really count. I rated it 5-star, but I also reread it. I've read it multiple times in the past years. Red, White, and Royal Blue. I know, it's so surprising that this book is mentioned in this video. I reread Red, White, and Royal Blue because the movie came out on my birthday, might I add. This book was literally made for me. I adore this book. Son of the first female president of the United States falls in love with the Prince of England. What more do you want? It's cute, kind of rom-com-y, but also deep and emotional and political, which I don't typically love, but I found really interesting, and I absolutely adore this book. Every time I've read it, I rated it a 5-star, so it doesn't really count, but I'm mentioning it because it so deserves mentioning, and I'm probably going to read it again in 2024 in August, because how can I not? It's going to become a tradition now. I reread it every year anyways, so now I'm just going to reread it in August every year until I die. So those are all the 5-star books that I've read this year. Because I'm me, I wanted to talk about some of my favorite found families that I've read this year. The top one, the very top one, is definitely from The House on Cerulean Sea, because they are found family. Like, they are family now. They have 2 dads and a whole bunch of kids, literally. Quite literally, and it just made me really happy. Like, these kids just have this family now, and it's so cute. This is the embodiment of found family, and so of course it's on top because it's just so found family. How many times can I say found family in a minute? Let's find out. I just really love them in this book, and they're just so cute. They're so cute. Some of my honorable mentions for top found families definitely go to The Naturals. You get the beginning of a found family in this one with this group of friends, kind of more of a typical YA found family, and I just can't wait to see them develop, and they have so much potential, so I definitely had to mention them. And then of course, So This Is Ever After has a really cute found family. Like, they just finished this quest together, so they already have a built dynamic. The way they interact with each other is so funny. Again, it feels very much like a D&D campaign and how people would interact with each other in that. They just fit together so well. They all have their own roles, and they stick together a lot. Like, they would really do anything for each other, even if they've only gone on one quest together, and it was just, I just love them, and I can't get over them, and I would reread this just for them. And of course, one of my favorite found families of all time is the Bayview Crew from One of Us is Lying series. This is the last installment, which hurts, but I just really love them, and I basically only read this book for them because I just really wanted to see them more and see what they're doing in life now. And my favorite 4 of them are definitely the original Bayview 4, but seeing them grow and add more people to their group is just, it's really cute, and I love it, and I just want to be part of them, and why can't I have them in my life? So I definitely had to mention these guys because they are my babies, and they are precious little angels, and I would do anything for them. So there's my unique category of my favorite found families, because I am nothing if not found family obsessed. So I definitely discovered a lot of new books and a lot of new authors this year, and some of the new authors I started reading include Emily Henry, Lauren Asher, V.E. Schwab, Ashley Poston, and Olivia Blake. I may have read a couple of other authors for the first time, but these ones are ones that I want to read more of their books. I want to continue my journey with them if I can. I know Ashley Poston literally only has 2 books, but I'm gonna read anything that she publishes. So I just can't wait to see how this next year goes, diving more into their books. Tell me which books of theirs are your favorites, and I will try my best to read them this next year. Those are all the prompts that I wanted to talk about today. Please tell me what your favorite book of the year was, what your least favorite books, or really any of your answers to these prompts that I shared. This next year, I definitely have a lot of reading goals for myself, and I can't wait to dive into them with all of you. Thank you everybody for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment below as always. I hope you all have an amazing week. Bye!